tell you a little bit about how the dog training works before I bring her out, and then we'll show you how she finds items. She's an explosives detection dog, so she finds, like a bomb dog, people would call her. She finds explosive substances. Everybody always asks me, oh, did you ever find a bomb? And I always said no, but I was talking to the ladies here from the library today, and we had somebody that called us and said that somebody had set an explosive device at a property in Sullivan County, and I went there with the dog, and we actually found it. And it was a legitimate device. The only thing is it was crudely made and probably would have to be lit to set it off. So being that nobody was there at the time, it was unlikely that it would have gone off. But nonetheless, you know, yeah, now I can say, yeah, she has found one. So all of our dogs do detection. We have 3 different types of dogs, I guess you could say. We have the explosives detection, like Versa. We have narcotics for drugs, and we have a couple of bloodhounds across the state. There's only about 4 of them. But all in all, the state police has about 100 dogs. It's one of the largest canine programs in the country. And we do all of our training in Cooperstown at a canine facility where we go for 5 months and live at the facility while we're training our dog. And so the dogs, everybody asks the question also about the dogs. The dogs are all named after fallen troopers. So Versa's namesake is trooper was Joseph of Versa. He actually worked in Wirtsboro for a time, and then went to New York City, worked with the drug task force, and he was shot and killed during a drug buy bust. So it means a lot to us as handlers to carry on that memory of our fallen troopers. Like I said, we have about 100 dogs all in all in the state police. The drug dogs and the bomb dogs do the same thing with the exception of their detection. They all track, they do building searches, and they all do handler protection. So a lot of people ask me, oh, the dogs bite people. It's the only way they can stop and grab somebody. They don't have hands like us, so they can't grab them with their hands. And so when we send our dog after somebody, their job is to grab them, hold them until we can get to them. And so that does happen on occasion also. So let me tell you about the school a little bit. In the canine school, like I said, it's 5 months. The first thing the dogs do is they learn their detection skills. That's the priority with our dogs, is their detection. And so the detection starts off with a wall. They have a 2x4 wall with plywood, and it has a bunch of 4-inch pipes in it. There's 2 walls, and I'm guessing there's probably 20 different pipes. And so they put an odor in a pipe, and then they let the dog search for the odor. When the dog finds the odor, they'll send their reward down the pipe to the dog. So the dog kind of like gets that memory. I found this odor and I got rewarded with it. All of the reward for our dogs are play. They don't get treats or anything like that. And so when they do something good, they get rewarded with play. And you'll see when she comes out, that's the most important thing to her, is if she can get her ball, she'll do whatever she has to get it. So like I said, they start with the wall like that, and then once they kind of master the wall, then they use some boxes that have holes in the top, so the dogs have to search the holes in each box to find the odor. And then we actually have like an apartment set up in our canine facility, so the dogs will eventually transition from just looking at pipes to searching everything. There's a TV on in there just as a distraction, and when we do our odor detection, most of the boxes that don't have an explosive odor or narcotics odor, depending on the dog, have some kind of distracting odor, like peanut butter, a dirty sock, something like that, because when they go in and they search someplace, they're going to be subject to all of that, you know, in any environment. So we put coffee in there, all kinds of stuff. Anything you could think of, we'll put in the other boxes, so we don't. The dogs realize that that's not an odor that they're trained to locate, and they'll hit on the substance we're looking for. So we actually search vehicles also with our dogs, and we work with that at the canine facility as well. I can show you how that works. I didn't put an odor on the car because it's kind of hot, but you'll see how she searches the car when I go around. And we do negative searches too, because the dog's not always going to find something, and so we do that. Now we do tracking, like I said. Also, I think I've used my dog more for tracking than anything else, and the tracking is a slow progression too. We start by dragging their toy across the ground and in just a straight line, and eventually we'll start putting turns in there with the ball, and then eventually we take the ball out of the equation altogether, and it's just a person walking. And I think as much as the human odor, they also smell like the crushed vegetation. You know, when people walk, they make odor come up from the ground by just walking in the dirt and grass. And so we use that for lost persons and for people who flee from us that are criminal suspects. Just a funny story, the first day I got released from the canine school, I went back to Liberty, and a guy called up and his wife had been missing overnight. So we went out and searched like the perimeter, and when I started searching with my dog, it was a farm and it had two big fenced areas with a path down the middle. And in that path, they took all the manure down and loaded it up. So I'm walking around and my dog's trying to go into the manure, and I'm like, what are you doing? I'm pulling her back, but then I looked and I could see footprints in it. And so I went beyond it, and lo and behold, she went through the woods and found a lady that was laying next to a creek that had been out there all night. So yeah, so like I said, on her first day, she kind of, if she didn't do anything else the rest of her career, she may have saved a life that day, you know.
How old are they when they first start their training?
They're usually at least one. Sometimes they're a little less, but more times they're older than that because their attention span is greater at that age. And some of them come that have some training in obedience and so forth. But yeah, usually at least 1 year old before they get trained in detection and all of the rest of it. But like I said, we live with them for 5 months. And one important note too is the training is done by us under supervision of our canine trainers. And so they don't train the dog and then hand the dog over to us and say, okay, this dog's trained, go. So we build a bond with the dogs when we're doing that, because they're learning at the same time we are. And like I said, it is 5 months when we initially go. But if we go back to get a second dog, like your dog ages out or gets injured or something like that, it's only 3 months. And we always say the 5 months is because we're not as smart as the dogs, so we need a little more time than the dogs. But once we understand the program, the dogs can learn quicker than we can. So they're pretty good at what they do. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but they call the nose and the sense of smell and everything an olfactory sensor. And the dog's sense of smell is probably 50,000 times or greater better than ours. And not only do they smell well, but their noses are configured different to where they can detect an odor direction. Like our noses kind of go into a central passage, and so when we smell something, we don't really know what direction the smell is in. But when the dogs smell something, they can detect whether it's to their right or left. And if you ever watch a dog when it tracks, a lot of times they'll go back and forth like this, zigzagging, because they'll get on the odor and then they'll realize they're waning, getting off of it, and they'll turn and come back because they're detecting that odor side to side from their nose. So it's pretty interesting to watch them. So like I said, I put some orders out. One of the orders is in that white box, and the other one is under one of those 3 garbage cans over against the other building. So I'll show you how she does that, the detection, and then I can do a demonstration on how she would capture somebody if they were loose, and we had to send a dog after somebody. So our cars have a door that we can open from outside of the car. This button that I have on my belt, if I press that button, the door will spring open, and so I don't have to go back to the car to get the dog, or if I'm in trouble, I can get the dog out without. And all of the doors that open are always on the right side of the car, which would be the door away from traffic. So, but that's something we have to consider too if we're going to let the dog loose. Is if you're on 17, you're probably not going to want to pop your door and let your dog out because, yeah. But we also, if I pop the door and I'm in the woods, she'll come find me. She'll search for me and find me too. So, and we do training, like I said, in the school. But I try and do something with her every day, whether it's detection. Sometimes I just hide stuff in the barracks. Sometimes I have friends who have businesses. I'll hide it on cars. I'll have another trooper put a track out for her. So they need constant training too. If they don't do anything for a while, they start to lose their skill just like we do. You know, just like a sports and athlete. So.
Do you ever do any of the competitions?
No, we don't. But I do know some of the handlers have done that, and but usually after they're retired. Yeah. So, but there's all kinds of trainings that we go to. There's shows on TV now that I don't know if anybody sees them, but they have like Top Dog and stuff like that. A lot of that stuff is similar to what we do. They may not use the exact same method, but if you ever see that show, they make them go through a series of obstacles to get to where they're going. And yeah, so it's pretty interesting. So let me get her out, and I'll show you some interesting things too with her. So she wants to go right over there and find whatever's in there. She knows there's something over there, and she wants that because she wants to get her ball and play, like I said before. So we train them both verbal and hand signals too. But like I said, her mind is only thinking about her ball now. Come heel. Heel. Down. She's 6. Get down.
And what kind of dog is she?
She's a German Shepherd. Yeah, just black in color.
Wow.
Everybody asks that, but yeah. So I'll let her look and find this substance that I hid out here. Come here.
Does she have a special alert signal?
Yeah, she'll either lay down or sit. So the bomb dogs lay down or sit because we don't want them tearing into a bomb.
Right.
And drug dogs will scratch. So we actually do cadaver searches too for, you know, people, and the bomb dogs don't do cadaver searches, just the drug dogs, because if we went to like a rubble pile where maybe an explosion happened, we don't want to decide whether or not the dog's laying down because there's a bomb there, a secondary device, or a body. Right. And so they just use the drug dogs for that. So, down.
Officer busy on
Find
the
a ball.
hand up. Oh.
Great. I don't know if you can all see those cans over there, but I'm going to take her over there and have her find that one too. Come, break.
She's not ready yet.
Break.
Good girl. Good girl.
Heel. Leave it.
Oh.
He's old school. Yeah, I want my ball.
Look at that. What a great gift.
Come. Break. So I'm just going to show you some other stuff that we do. Here, heel. Heel. Stag.
Oh.
Down.
Oh, Daddy.
So, like I said, we do building searches, and sometimes when they go into a building, we don't want to make a lot of noise. And so we do hand signals like I showed you with the sitting down. And so I also can just send her by squeezing her, but she won't go until I squeeze her back. Come, break.
Where do they typically find these dogs?
Okay. Back up. Back up. So when she does her play, it's also training because she's doing obedience. And so like I play, you know, throw the ball for her every day to give her exercise, but it's also reinforcing her obedience skills at the same time. Free. Here.
Oh.
Come. Down.
Yay.
Come down. Break. And she's pretty athletic too. I'll show you. Come, break. She has a football at home that she popped a long time ago. Break, leave it. But they're like kids, they get excited. Break. Come on, bring it. Break. Up. Break, back up.
There was a question over here about where do you get your dogs from?
They get them from all over. They used to mostly get them from rescue dogs and stuff like that. But a lot of the dogs lately they've been purchasing from overseas. A lot of them come. Come. So that's a little bit there, and I'll show you how she would apprehend somebody too. So I'll use a sleeve to show you that. Obviously, if somebody is in the real world, they don't wear a sleeve, so it's a lot different then. But I'm gonna pop the door on this side of the car, and she'll come out the door. And so that's something that we train for also. But I'll get the sleeve and show you. And when I get the sleeve, you'll hear her. She will go crazy in there because she likes doing that. But it's all a trained thing. So, like I always think that it's not so much a nasty thing as it is we train them to do that, and they know that we reward them for doing right, you know, proper what we trained them. So a lot of the dogs, when you see them practice and bite work, they wag their tails like it's great, you know. I'm having fun, and if you think about it, we all play with our dogs like a tug of war thing. It's much like that, but yeah. So like I have kids at home, and she comes home with me every night, so she's with me 24/7. I've never had a problem where that teaching that type of aggression or bite work translates to any kind of problem outside of that. They're smart, you know, animals, and they know the difference. Like even every day when I get my uniform on, as soon as I put the uniform on, she goes and waits by the door because she knows we're leaving. And on occasion, if I have to go to court or something that doesn't require the dog, I tried to leave her home a few times, but it didn't work out very well for me. So now I take her every time. If I'm going someplace, she goes too. So, but just so you know too, like most of these dogs, mine's a shepherd, but we have Belgian Malinois, Dutch shepherds. They require a lot of exercise, and so like if anybody thinks about getting a dog like that, there's a lot of work that goes along with it. So yeah, to keep them healthy and entertained, and if you don't keep them entertained and they entertain themselves, it's usually on your sofa cushion or something like that. So yeah. So once she grabs somebody, they hold on.
Wow.
Won't let go.
So she has pretty good grip.
Wow!
But she won't let go until we tell her to.
So
Right? Down.
the criminal must be screaming at that point, you know?
Oh yeah.
You know.
When we train, we do make noise because we want the dogs to realize that's not something crazy. Yeah. Bus. Yeah, you can see she's having fun, her tail's wagging, but it's tiring. Come. Here. Come on. She's trying to keep away from me now because she wants to hold on to her toy. Come. Lay down. Down. Good. They're very proud when they do good. So that's play for her too. Just that one time I let her back in the car with the sleeve, and it wasn't a sleeve anymore after about 5 minutes. So she chewed it right up. She can't open it. Yeah, with the button on my belt. Yeah. But she knows because it clicks twice. When she hears that first click, she knows she's coming out.
You said at one point the dogs age out. At what age do they have to retire?
Usually 8 for the shepherds and 10 for the Belgian Malinois.
Do they still stay with you after they age
Yeah,
out?
yeah. Come, kennel. Come on.
Just like a kid.
Yeah,
Does she
like
wear a
I
badge?
said, that's actually a good thing that she is that excited about her toys and working. That's one of the things they test the dogs for. They actually usually try and find like a field of high grass, and they'll toss a ball into the field of high grass, making it difficult for the dog to find. If the dog stays there and hunts and hunts and hunts for that ball, that's the type of dog we're looking for. If the dog runs in there and doesn't find the ball and is out within a few seconds or a short period of time, then it's not the drive that we're looking for a working dog.
Who's your name, Pastor?
Yeah.
Do they find bombs and stuff?
Well, they find explosives. Yeah. She does black powder, smokeless powder, TNT, dynamite, C4, explosive detonation cord, ammonium nitrate, which is like a fertilizer bomb, and potassium chloride. What's that? They had. I don't know if any of ours that have gotten hurt, but dogs, have gotten hurt searching. Their job's dangerous, just like ours, and so sometimes that does happen. But not that I'm aware of any of our dogs, but they sometimes get hurt just working, or sometimes just training, because just like us, they have flaws just like we do, And some days the dogs are great, like I've done tracks with my dog and been amazed, and then I've taken her out another day for a track and been like, where's my dog? So they have, like I was reading an article about canine training, and they say a lot of, people put their records on their training records. They find everybody they search for, they find every odor they search for, they, everything's 100, but in reality, sometimes it takes some assistance to get the dog to that point. And so they actually said it's better to show that your dog does have deficiencies, because they do. They're like us, like everything's not 100% every time, and they do miss stuff, and so we try not to rely solely on that. But yeah, like I said, it's actually good to show flaws. We all have flaws too, and so the dogs are just like that too. So.
You mentioned smokeless powder.
Yeah.
What about ordinary ammunition?
So there's big debates about that. A sealed shell really doesn't have a lot of odor because it's encapsulated. The odor is encapsulated behind a bullet inside the casing. But a shotgun shell usually is a little looser. Like if you ever look at the end of a shotgun shell, a lot of times it's broken. So they will sometimes hit on a unfired shotgun shell. But we do case detection for spent shell casings. The DEC does more of that than we do, because they have a lot of hunting accidents, or they're trying to investigate a crime where somebody shot from a road or something. So they'll deploy their dogs to do shell casing, and that's where I learned it from some of the DEC guys that I've worked with. And like I said, you can use your dog to find spent shell casings if they're freshly fired. But if it's a shell casing that sat off for a week in a rain, it kind of dissipates and loses its odor. And the same thing with a firearm. If you take a firearm that's been sitting for a year, it's probably unlikely the dog's going to find it. But if somebody fired that gun a couple of days ago, now it's going to have odor, and so the dogs aren't finding guns as guns. They're smelling the powder, the odor that they're trained in, and that's how they find them. But I did have Jason come out one time. I was talking to the people here from the library, and we had a bunch of burglaries, and during that they piled up these guns in the woods, and we couldn't find them. And so we brought the dog out to where we found some other items, and his dog within minutes found a whole bunch of guns that they had piled under like pine branches, and they were like steps from where we were, but we just never saw them.
Wow.
So yeah, that was obvious case that the dog smelled, you know, either powder, either smokeless
Residue.
or black powder. Yeah. So
Do all of those items that you listed share a common scent, or do you have to train individually on each one of those different types of
no,
things?
so each one of those is an individual scent, but then there's some scents that are a combination of those. So they train them individually for each scent, and then some scents that are combined, they train that later. Yeah, and so like we don't know what the dog is thinking, but the dog's obviously smelling one or two or both of them at the same time. But if I put some odors out, some of the odors that I have, the stuff we use is a synthetic odor, so it's not an actual powder or anything, so it's not dangerous, non-hazardous. But we haven't found that using these simulated odors hurts the dogs in any way. Because when they go to the school, we have to recertify every year, usually twice a year, and they put real odors out at the school because it's more of a controlled environment. And none of the dogs have a hard time finding the real odors after being, you know, using these simulated odors for all that time.